So welcome.
Thank you.
Congratulations
Thank you.
on, I guess it's your second feature and your second trip to Cannes, or your second film in Cannes, not your second trip.
Yeah. Yeah, it's, I'm going to take it in because it might not happen again, so really embrace it.
I think once Cannes decides they like you, they will keep inviting you, right?
I don't know that that's a thing that you can count on, but it certainly, I think, especially with comedies, it probably helped that they kind of at least got the sense of humor of the first film. So when we made this one, at least like they maybe had a little bit of the decoder ring to like, oh, okay, we get the tone of these guys' movies.
Yeah. Now, your first one in 2019 was The Climb, which starred the two of you and was co-written by the two of you. And Emily, you were involved in that one. I mean, that didn't feel like a Cannes movie, which I think was one of the reasons that it played so well here, I guess. I mean, were you surprised when Cannes said, yeah, come on, we'll put you in certain regard?
You're surprised anytime a festival accepts your film because you're just like, I think it's good, but then, you know, you're always sort of waiting for the other shoe to drop sometimes. But I think we really liked that film, and we liked where that film ended up. And, you know, we love the Cannes Film Festival. Like, I just would come here every year to watch movies and take meetings and as a producer. And so, like, we shot the opening scene of The Climb, like, 30 minutes north of here. I don't think we thought, oh, if they see a road that they recognize, they're going to put us in the festival. But we also didn't think it hurt. And I think because we were referencing a lot of sort of French cinema that we loved, it felt kind of like, it just felt like the right fit. And so I don't know. I think as Kyle and I are making films, and as we're all making films, and even the whole crew, we're always sort of like getting on the same page and developing a language with what films we're watching. And we kind of get specific and we curate a little bit. And we're like, hey, everyone watch these 10 films. And a lot of times it's Italian films from the 70s, or in this film's case, like, or French films and certain American comedies from like decades ago.
I think one of the things that sort of connects us is that we have a basis of American, like stupid American comedies from our youth that we just love. And then as we sort of got older and more into film, we started getting into like the more European cinema, the films that premiere here, and those became the films we really love. And so I think a lot of what we're doing is an amalgamation of our childhood of those, you know, big American comedies or big American blockbusters, and then this new sensibility of like European cinema and what we discovered later in life in Cannes, at least for me.
Yeah. I mean, with The Climb, the relationship between your two characters was so heated and such a battle at times that I think that you ended up having to do interviews where you explained that you were actually better friends than it looked like on screen. Right?
Well, we were then. We're not anymore.
Okay.
After
worse.
the second film kind of really breaks down the friendship in a way you never expect.
It's like
this is actually, like, we'll do a couple more interviews at the festival, but we're done after this.
They're good actors, you know? They're sitting.
Right. I mean, you do start this one, it's like after explaining that you were really friends, you start your second movie within the first half hour, there is a long, extremely funny, you know, half hour or so, it feels like, where you guys just beat each other up, right? So you're not trying to hide the enmity that's here, right?
Yeah, I think maybe that was a byproduct of just being on set working. We wanted to just beat each other up every day. So we just made a big fight scene.
Yeah, you always start with the things that you want to do, and then you try to figure out how to reverse engineer it into the plot. At least that's what I found. No, but I think for us it was like, I mean, it's giving the movie away a little bit, but I don't think it'll give it away fully because it still will feel a little bit like what's happening right now. But we love this idea of people dealing with jealousy and betrayal, but then not even having the words for it, so it all just comes out physically. And that became a really funny sort of like jumping off point to build this sort of big, insane, sort of off-the-wall set piece.
Mm-hmm. I also think they have this very specific way of displaying the desperately romantic way in which men express themselves, which is they don't know how to express themselves. So it becomes physical, and they just are twirling around these women doing their best to get them back. And then with physical comedy, it creates for a really fun dynamic I think, on screen.
So how carefully do you have to choreograph a scene like that? I mean, did you work out every beat, all puns intended?
Yeah, I mean, we choreographed it for weeks and weeks and weeks, and then we joined this climbing gym, or this like bouldering gym in Montreal where we shot, because they have really thick mats. Because if you fall off the wall, you like land on the mats, and then we would just beat the shit out of each other in the corner of the gym and throw each other around every night. And these
It would just be a bunch of French Canadians trying to climb, and they'd be like, "What are you doing?"
they would look over, they'd go
Punching each
WWE,
other.
yeah, and they'd like cheer for us when
Yeah.
one of us would flip the other person or punt, you know. So it became this really fun kind of training thing. And Kyle and I both have a background in sports. I played like American football for a long time. He was a mountaineer, and so I think like as soon as we got into that rhythm of like the physical training of it, it really became something that we were just focused on and had a lot of fun with.
As producer, are you thinking, okay, guys, please let's?
No, not
That's
at
what's
all.
great about Emily.
No, I think we prioritized them doing their own stunts because we felt it was important both to make it look as realistic as possible, but also because this is something in the long run they are interested in doing. And you know, I think sometimes people might underestimate how capable they are, how prepared. What I was very impressed by was we were in the thick of prep. We were, you know, scouting all day long. Then they were doing rewrites. Then we had to get on calls. And then somehow after all of that, they would go to the gym and do what they were doing. And then afterwards, they would train with the stunt coordinator. So I was impressed, but I didn't tell them in the process. I was just telling them, keep going.
Never once told me she's impressed, ever. This is the first time I might cry.
I was impressed.
So it's been 6 years since the climb, but those 6 years included a pandemic and a couple of strikes. I mean, did you start thinking about this one soon after that?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely been some ebbs and flows where we got close on a movie or two, and then they didn't happen. When we were here with the climb, we made that with a company called Topic Studios, and they financed the climb, and we brought it to market and sold it here, and we ended up doing a first look deal for 3 years with them, coming off of the climb, and so we wrote 3 scripts, and this was just the 3rd script. So we wrote like 2 kind of bigger scripts, and movies that we were really excited about making and still are. And then this one was like, okay, let's make something really makeable right now. And so we wrote this as sort of something that Kyle and I could act in again, and something that was a bit of a, like, I guess, a return to what we had done before, which was like a relatively manageable budget, 2 people who no one knows who they are in the 2 male leads. And then we got very lucky in that, Dakota decided to join us and bring her sort of immense talent, and then Audrey Arjona, who we were like kind of blown away by, had recently seen her in some things that were like, who is this person? So
I think you did have an awareness of what the market might be looking for and what is maybe not missing, but where there is an opportunity in the comedic landscape, which means elevated comedy for a global audience. So clearly it came from story first, but you had an awareness of where you wanted to take it. And we had such a dream team with Neon Topic, Tea Time, and Dakota and Adria. Like, was really wonderful. We felt really lucky.
So how has the market changed over the last 6 years since you did the climb?
Well, I think we were very intent on not taking this film to market to sell it. I think the goal was really to go in with a distributor we could be having conversations about how to market the film, how to release the film, and really just partnering from day one. And that's not because we wouldn't love to make a film independently and go and sell it for a lot of money someday again. But I think it's just there's been so much fluctuation, and it's like all that uncertainty. Like when we brought the climb here, we sold it to Sony Classics, and we were so lucky, and we were like, this is the dream. Like, we're gonna have that big blue logo in front of the thing, like the movies we grew up loving. Oh my God! And then they were like, we're gonna release March 20th, 2020. We're like, oh, great date. And then on March 16th, every theater in America shut down, and the movie never came out. And not that we were like with this movie going, oh, you know what, there might be another pandemic or something, but I think it was like the more variables that we could just sort of put away, where we're like, we don't need the variable of who's releasing the film. It's like, let's just go find someone who gets the movie we're trying to make and sees. And Neon really got it. Like they were like, we understand what this is. We understand what you guys want to do with it, and they supported it. And they were really just great partners. And so it ended up being like a really beautiful experience from that standpoint. Like it almost is never easy in this industry, and that side of things with Topic and Neon was like very simple. And we're releasing in August, so it's like kind of we started shooting at mid-September last year. So it's a very quick turnaround.
I mean, with the two others that you had written and wanted to make, I mean, were there business reasons why those were kinds of movies that are harder to get going?
There's a strike, and then another strike, and then it's just a lot of different things that would come that come up, and there's certain budgets that it just becomes you have to have a certain cast and a certain thing in order to make it in a certain way, and I think we have an ambition to make sort of really interesting, challenging films that would be challenging for us to make, like films that scare us. We're like, ooh, how would we do that? But and then try to figure it out. And I think when you sort of have a fluctuating market where people are trying to just like, all right, let's just go with something that we know is a sure thing. We know is not a safe bet, but something that's more proven. I think like as filmmakers, it's probably helpful for us to get a couple films under our belt to go and then say, hey, give us a bunch of money for this thing,
And I think we being producers first, and then sort of becoming, writer, directors, and actors. I think we have a producerial mindset in terms of everything we're writing to make, and we know how we're making it. And there's a clear path from the get-go in the writing of how we're going to make it and how it's going to be directed. And I think for us, it's just a matter of like we complete a project the way we think we want to execute it. And if that's not what the market wants at that point, we're happy to set it aside until the market's ready for that and make something else. But we sort of really know what that movie is and wants to be. And if the market's not ready for it, we say, great, we'll park it until everyone's interested in this thing again, because it's so cyclical and it's so, in 1 month, no one's doing it, and next month everyone wants it. So for us, we're like, great, this is the project we want to make, and this is the package it needs to be in, and we'll hold it until it's ready to go.
So when the two of you are writing together and you know that you're writing characters that you're going to be playing, are you thinking at all of, do I really want to do that on screen?
For sure.
Yeah, maybe the opposite. I think we like pushing ourselves as hard as we can. So I think for us, it's more about like, and maybe it's pushing each other. Maybe we just write horrible things for each other.
Yeah, like sometimes we'll write scenes. I'll be like, hey, what if your character did this? And he's like, oh my God. I'm like, we need more nudity for you.
Yeah. We definitely had those conversations.
You have two guys who are very comfortable with discomfort
Yeah.
in all directions, which is sometimes uncomfortable for other people to witness, but it's weirdly, I feel like it actually makes them grow and people around them grow because you have to go through it, but sometimes it's interesting to watch.
Yeah, I think we innately sort of pursue it's like understanding characters and then putting them in really sometimes uncomfortable situations, but like palpable situations, like very, situations that make you go like, oh, like, and then the comedy comes out of that. So I think because we innately, as a starting point, understand the characters that we're going to play, we're like, okay, what dynamic or situation or discomfort can we put these characters in? And then it just becomes fun. It's like for purely selfish reasons, those are the type of scenes that we want to play and be in and experience,
I mean, also the way you structure these last two films, where it's a chapter and then there's a break and then another chapter. It's like by the end of the movie, when the new chapter comes up, it's like, okay, how are they going to find a new way to fuck up this relationship even more than it did in the last four? I mean, do you have to keep topping yourself as the movie goes on?
Yeah. Yes, we have to keep topping ourselves.
I was going to say no.
No, I think for us, it's more entertaining to do it that way. You know what I mean? And so, and I think we put a lot of pressure on our scripts in order to get them as great as we can. And so I think, we just keep working it until it's, as potent as possible. And I think that means, we're escalating all those scenes.
Well, and I also think sometimes we're writing from a place of like, what are the traditional scenes that we would see to bridge the gap from here to here to here? And then we're like, take that one out, take that one out, take that out. Like, we only need this one. And sometimes the action or the thing that the big monumental thing just happened off screen and we're playing catch up in the next scene because we're like, oh, we don't need to see that. Like, and I think that's a active conversation constantly. Like, what things do we need to see play out in real time? What scenes can we just like fill people in on and go, whoa, that's what happened? And then you're playing catch up. So it's like, I think it's just a fun, engaging way to tell story that we're particularly interested in at this moment, which is not that it's always going to be chapters, but I think giving the audience a break, jumping ahead in time, resetting, figuring out where we are and what the dynamics are, it creates like a active participation sort of experience with the story where like you have to catch up a little bit or you have to, and I think we're constantly challenging ourselves to remove exposition or remove expository scenes that don't drive story or have anything to do with that you don't really need. So we find ourselves like with two scenes that do the same thing. It's like one's got to go, flip a coin.
I think also that in thinking about what you're saying right now, it is in a very graceful way, assuming that the audience is actually more intelligent than we might give it credit sometimes. So if we give them something that we hope has commercial global appeal, but elevating it by things like this, where they have to be a bit more participatory and we actually think they are totally capable of that rather than explaining it to them with exposition, I think that's what we like to come from.
I mean, we should probably point out for the people who haven't seen it that it's basically at the beginning of the movie, both of you guys are married, and then one of the relationships, one of the wives wants a divorce, and the rest of it is exploring the various permutations of these four people and lots of others.
Yeah, I mean, the hook of the movie is Kyle's wife asked for a divorce in the opening of the film. He has a reaction to that. He shows up at my wife and I's house in the film, and we tell him we're in an open relationship, and that's like why we're in such a good marriage and everything's great. And he's sort of shocked by that, and then the whole movie sort of devolves from there into betrayal and chaos and all sorts of things.
So for each of you, I mean, what were there specific challenges that you felt like were the biggest in making this?
I think we tried to do something very ambitious, on a very ambitious timeline, which meant limited time, really, and a lot of scope and a lot of movie within limitations. And again, we had fantastic partners who supported that. So it was a challenge we pursued and we asked for, but it did mean we had to get really creative and frankly, relentless in holding the line. I mean, it's a short timeline to turn around from shooting in the fall to premiering in Cannes to then releasing on August 22nd in less than a year. But that was what we wanted, and I'm very happy we made it happen. So it was a challenge we welcomed, but that was challenging. Time.
Yeah, the timeline was challenging, and then I guess, the holding the line of like, we shot on film, we kept all the big set pieces, we didn't really compromise on how we did them. So there's big stunts and fights. Like there's a couple things that don't belong in movies typically of this, and I think that's what kind of felt for us when we were writing it a little bit subversive and interesting. It's like, what if we made this sort of like talky four-hander or two couples thing, but we put a bunch of big like action-y stunts in it and things that just feel a little bit out of the ordinary. I mean, I'm oversimplifying it, but I think like at a baseline level, it felt like there's a surprisingness and a uniqueness to that was really exciting and enticing to us.
Yeah, I think the challenge was time. You know what I mean? We were trying to do a lot, and we had limited time. So even just the script of a boring four-hander about this subject matter would probably take you 24
Did you say
days.
boring? Did you say
It was like even a boring version.
Oh,
they just sit around.
You're saying
and
a
talk.
boring version. You're not calling ours a boring version.
Well, it's not boring.
I also think we should. Time is always the challenge
Right,
on movies,
right.
so we're not being self-indulgent. But like I said, we maybe pushed it a little further
Right.
than is sometimes the case.
And the point being that we had to get it right. Everything had to be right on time. So the pressure was high every day to be like everything has to hit perfectly, and so that's a lot.
So what was the production schedule on this?
We had around 5 weeks of prep, and if we can say it,
Well, 5 weeks of hard prep. But
Hard prep,
we had
yeah.
Like, yeah, 6. I mean, a little more than that for like, we were up in Montreal working on the movie, but
Yeah.
but all department heads, everything. It was like really 5.5 weeks of prep.
yeah, and then we essentially shot it in 24 days.
Yeah.
With a couple extra, like, kind of like
Reduced unit.
reduced
yeah.
unit days for me and him to fight.
So it was. I think the soft prep period was actually extremely crucial to be able to achieve it, and just doing that with the key parties, stepping into hard prep was important. And again, we shot it somewhere else, so making sure that we were familiarized with a team there that we were not familiar with before was also important. So we all spoke the same language, and everyone had the same North Star.
But we didn't
Yeah.
speak the same language because they all spoke French.
I spoke the same language partially.
I mean, obviously, there's a lot of talk about filming in the U.S. as opposed to outside of So you went to Canada for this? I mean, would it have been possible for you to do this within the United States?
Not at the time. Well, it could have been. It was a financial decision. Canada makes a lot of sense from both exchange rate and the federal and the local tax credit. And then on top of it, there was a potential other strike looming, and we wanted to activate. But we
Yeah,
would have
and our-
loved to shoot it in New York. But
Yeah, to make our timeline, there was a potential strike in the U.S., so there wasn't. It kind of became not an option if we wanted to make it in the late summer, fall.
I think also Mel's in Quebec had a great film processing lab, and so when we went with 35 millimeter, their operation fit very well. Their timelines and what they were willing to do for us for film was really appealing, and that was a big advantage as
Yeah.
well.
Well, if we've talked about the biggest challenges, what was the most fun? What are there days that you
challenges. The challenges were the most fun. What do you think was
are
most
there
fun?
days you'll always remember when shooting this?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the crazy thing is that when you're making a film and when you're writing it, you're writing something that you would love to do. You're writing scenes you would love to do, and being in that position to be in scenes with Dakota or Adria and do these insane things that you had sort of whipped up out of your mind. I think that's always an incredible feeling to see it materialize in front of you. And so I think in that sort of like moment of that short window when you're actually doing the thing and everyone's work is coming together, I think it's really it's a beautiful moment in any film, just capturing scenes on film with actors, with all the departments having done their work is an incredible experience.
Yeah, for me, I think honestly the acting component of it, because there's so much pressure on the directing, and so you're so focused, and then I was like, oh, I actually have to there's some scenes at the end with me and Dakota that are important to bring home the sort of emotional journey of the film, and so I think just preparing for that and actually and it was some of the most fun I've had, because I'm standing across from a really, really immensely talented, brilliant actress who's and we're kind of going toe to toe and deliver and just having fun with it in this kind of very visceral way, because we're playing husband and wife, and so just from a purely experiential standpoint, I just loved that, because it's very rare I get to just tune it all out and just focus and be an actor for a second, and no one writes roles for me like that. So this is every time I do that, I'm like, this might be the last time. I better give it my all. So I from a purely selfish standpoint, I just loved. There was that scene, and then there's one scene I do with Adria. I only have one scene with Adria, and I find that scene immensely funny for some reason. I just think it's it's one of my favorite things I've gotten to do.
Like I said, genuinely the challenges. Think the opening scene, which I won't share here exactly what happens, but the main set piece, that it was a really cool day. Somewhat more reduced crew, but yet this ambitious thing that, again, with limited time we pulled off. It just felt exhilarating.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for talking about us. They premiere on Monday, and I'm sure it's going to be a riotous screening down the street. So everybody should go.
Thank you very much. Thank you.